Glad to have you here. I've gone ahead and started the recording. We're glad to see so many of you today at the office hours, so thanks for making time for us. As you all can tell, we have our fearless leader, Mary Hip, on the call with us. Um, Jessica and I just wanted to go through some quick reminders, and then we'll turn this meeting over to Mary, who will give us a little bit more information about what's going on at the state. So first, we wanted to just mention that I know that y'all have your literacy books and are working diligently on those for early childhood, elementary, and special education. As a reminder, those are due May 1. If y'all have any questions or want any help, please feel free to reach out to Jessica and myself. Those middle and high books will be coming out very soon, and we're hoping to have those back in August 1. So that's something to look for here in the near future. Jessica?
Yes, ma'am. So one announcement from me, friends, and that is due to scheduling conflicts, we are going to move the March office hours 1 week earlier. So it will fall on March 13. Not to worry, we will send out a friendly reminder of that, letting you know of the change of date 1 week before then. We do apologize for that, but we just want to give you plenty of a heads up. And we'll be sure to also record that for you. So if you can't make it, we totally get it. But not to worry, we'll be here for you, and we can always meet one-on-one too if you need anything. That's all I got.
Awesome. Mary, we'll
Yeah.
turn it over to you.
Well, thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Jessica. Morning, everybody. It's nice to see your smiling faces this morning. So, especially on one that's this cold and kind of wet around the Columbia area. I just wanted to kind of share a couple of pieces of legislation that we are tracking here in the office. Um, long ago, I gave up any claim to having predictive abilities where it comes to the General Assembly. So I'm just going to share some things that we are tracking. One piece of legislation that we are presenting, and then just kind of general questions that you might have. Glad to entertain those as well. So we have a regulation up for review before the General Assembly. That is an update to Regulation 4364, which is certification requirements at the advanced level. That's our regulation that governs certification for school principals, superintendents, school counselors, school librarians, school psych, and SLPs. The principal change, and no pun intended, but I worked that in well. The main change in that regulation is our request to change principal certification from its current elementary and secondary grade spans to a PK-12 grade span that reflects standards for the preparation of principals. It certainly reflects how they are prepared and licensed in other states. And I think most of you run into difficulties with your graduates who are certified in one or the other and need to be staffed in the opposite. And so they're having to kind of complete some cumbersome requirements to add that complementary field. So that is our primary change that we've recommended in that regulation. We've done a lot of edits to that regulation for clarity and consistency. The English teacher in me finally got a chance to get my hands on what was, to me, the most poorly worded regulation that our office touches. And so we've done a lot of work there. We also have made some edits on the service or instructional service fields, updating the titles to school librarian, school counselor, SLP. Very few changes to the requirements, other than just saying more explicitly, here's the kind of programs that we accept for licensure in these fields. We are making a similar shift in school counselor to make that a PK-12 as well, because those of you who have a school counseling program, you know, when your folks complete that program, we are issuing them both elementary and secondary school counselor now. So it just makes sense that we make that complementary shift as well. So that actually will go before the Senate Education Committee, the full committee, next Wednesday morning. That's February 26th. I'll drop the link to that agenda in the chat. So if you want to access the draft changes to that regulation, you can do so. The way regulations work when they go before the General Assembly, they're tagged with a document number and not the regulation number itself. So the regulation that we're taking is actually document 5318, and you can access it there. The other reason to take a look at that agenda for that committee meeting next week is there are two other regulations being presented that I think are relevant certainly to your work. One will be the life scholarship enhancements, and the second, the Palmetto Fellows enhancements. And Jeff Perez from the Commission on Higher Ed presented those at the House subcommittee meeting last week, and at the Senate subcommittee 2 weeks before. So if you want to take a look at those changes, essentially codifying what was in a proviso this year, I would recommend that you do that. We do have a second reg going before, or the agency has a second reg going before that day, but that's really just adjusting our assessment regulation to take out specific test names for more general language so that when an assessment changes, we don't have to go back to the General Assembly to update the regulation. So take a look at the reg. I think from what we gathered from our from the deans back in September, making that shift to PK-12 certification of principals was met with a lot of positive feedback. We're certainly getting it from the field. And our counseling colleagues, again, supportive of the PK-12 shift. Our SLP colleagues, very supportive of the amended language in that section for clarity. I don't make the SLP folks happy very often, I will tell you all that, but we made them happy, and it was really nice to work with them on this particular piece of regulation. So changes there. Any questions about that regulation? Judy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. So I got the agenda for that and noticed what was on it and was thinking about, jumping in or coming to the meeting. But when I tried to link onto those documents, they weren't linking. I mean, I was getting an error message.
I had that same problem this morning, Judy, trying to access the documents. I can message Katie Nilges at the Senate Education Committee. I wasn't sure if it was something on our side here at the agency or if it was something on their website. I do know that their website was down part of the day last Tuesday, perhaps. So they've been making some changes to that website. So I don't mind messaging Katie Nilges and see if she can take a look. And you may just want to, there should be information on that document, whom to contact. The documents are not easy to find on the
I
State
figured
House
that out too.
website. Yeah. Bills are easy to get to, but the regulation changes are not. So, and I don't know why that is, but I'm glad to message her.
Thank you. And I will respond to the email that's on the agenda as well. Another question I had, so when regulations go before the education subcommittee, what's the process?
Yeah. Good
is it going to do me any good to be there or not?
I think it does, and especially if you either want to provide feedback, in support of a regulation change or concerns about a regulation change. You can also, any of you can also provide written feedback in advance of the meeting. So, if you support that principal change, I would certainly encourage you to share that information with them. So as far as the process with regulations, obviously these are this is a State Board of Education regulation. So the draft change has gone through 2 readings before the State Board. That happened in October and then in December. moved over to the General Assembly in January. And so regulations then are taken up by typically the education subcommittees in both the House and the Senate. So I've been over to the education subcommittee meeting on this reg. Last week was at the House regulation subcommittee and didn't actually get a chance to present this regulation, so I'll have to go back another day because their agenda was so full. So essentially, the regulations will go through House and Senate committees before they go to the floor of each body. They can be voted up or down. There's also a provision, if no action is taken on a regulation in 120 days, essentially that regulation goes into effect. So when my early years in the agency, sometimes our regulations weren't taken up at all and they would just time out and go into effect. These days, the education committees typically do take up any regulations that we bring over. And so there's that opportunity there to provide feedback. So if a regulation can be voted down in a committee meeting or on the floor, and obviously that kind of stops it in its tracks. Another regulation that went over this session was the sign language interpreters regulation, which is a new regulation, and the House committee actually asked for the department to withdraw that regulation and to take it back to the state board for revision. So that I've had that happen to a regulation as well. So if everything goes well, they'll be voted forward and again, either go to the floor of the House and the Senate for votes or just time out and go into effect. So
Thank you.
that is your civics lesson for today. All right. Couple other bills that we are tracking, and Judy, you may be doing this as well. Senate 78 is a bill that would allow, and we can drop these links in the chat. Senate 78 is a bill that would allow educators to receive experience credit for non-teaching occupational experience related to what they are teaching or their certification. So for instance, if you have someone that has worked as, let's say, a chemist in a lab setting, and that individual goes on to become certified as a teacher, this bill would allow that individual to get some educator experience credit for that work as a chemist after a bachelor's degree. And the ratio is 1 year of experience for 2 years of non-teaching occupational experience. We've had the opportunity to make recommendations for amendments to that bill, and those have been incorporated. So our goal is to try to, help the General Assembly see how a piece of legislation might impact educators, the difficulty we might have in implementing it, and then I'm grateful for the opportunity to provide feedback. So they've incorporated some changes there. The other bill that has come through the Senate is Senate 79. Lisa, go back. Let me stop there.
I'm sorry, it took me a minute to find my mic. Talking about that Senate 78, Mary,
Yep.
I just wanted to clarify, those years of experience, though, that say that chemist would get do not count toward retirement. Is that correct?
You're
Okay.
exactly correct. So let me tell you the folks that this impacts more than others. This impacts career changers to a great degree. Some other states, our colleagues in North Carolina, for instance, give educator experience credit for occupational experience outside of teaching. Folks that try to come here from North Carolina to work sometimes discover that they will get far less experience credit for compensation purposes than they did in the state of North Carolina. So this bill will actually help a number of our career changers. It will help our CTE instructors. Folks that have, we don't have any ed prep programs preparing candidates to teach business ed. They're all coming to us through PACE or Teachers of Tomorrow. Those folks have occupational experience that is valuable to the work they do and to their students, but they don't get any experience credit for that currently. So this is really I think a recruitment and a retention incentive. And I think we're hearing favorable feedback. So I think there's a real possibility this bill may pass this year. Senate 79 is a pilot for non-certified teachers, and it limits the number or the percentage that a school could have, establishes some parameters around that. But I would suggest, if you're interested, to take a look at that particular bill as well. It has been through part of the Senate. I don't know, it doesn't seem to be moving as quickly as Senate 78. So I'm not sure what its status is at the moment and if it will make crossover to go to the House. The other bill that you may have heard or read about in news articles is House 3196, the Educator Assistance Act. It has gone through committee and subcommittee in the House and through the floor of the House, and has crossed over to the Senate and will now go to the Senate, or has been assigned to the Senate Education Committee. So at this point, there's no hearing scheduled in the Senate for it, but that could happen. The Educator Assistance Act does a couple of things, and again, we've had the opportunity to provide some feedback. It would allow teachers to use all the professional development they're doing in their districts. That would be sufficient to renew their certificate. We were already working on that and already working on that here at the agency through kind of drafting changes to the renewal matrix. There's some impacts in terms of professional development days, impacts in terms of providing teachers notice at the time a contract is issued of their possible salary. I think, with the state budget not being adopted until June or sometimes even July, teachers don't know for certain at the time they sign a contract in May what their projected salary for the next year will be. So there's some parameters in that bill around notice that districts would have to provide of a projected salary. Also some language around breach of contract and limits on any kind of disciplinary penalty related to breach of contract. So there are a number of different components of this bill. It also would kind of revise the retired educator certificate to make that, right now it's just for substituting, but in this sense, the amendments would allow that to be used for returning to employment after retirement in a certified position. So a number of changes in that bill. So again, I would encourage you to take a look at those different pieces of legislation. We do, and there are always surprises along the way, and pieces of legislation that are filed even throughout the session. So if you have any questions about those, please reach out, and we'll share as much as we know about those. The other thing I wanted to kind of reach out and give you a heads up on is you're probably hearing in the field a great deal of information around high quality instructional materials, the Instruction Hub. And I've been asked to meet with that office here in the agency so that we can better partner with you on getting you access to some of that material, and so that your candidates will have a better sense of the instructional and the curricular materials that are available at the state level for teachers and school districts to use. And of course, obviously this is exactly what your candidates are working on, crafting lessons using curricular materials. You want them to have the access to what they would actually use in classroom settings in South Carolina. So stay tuned there, because we really are interested in working with that office here at the agency to better connect the work you do with what's going on in the field. Good deal of expansion still, obviously the push around literacy. Letters is expanding next year to some teachers in 4th and 5th grade and to special education teachers working in middle school settings. I think we'll see some increased emphasis around the Palmetto Math Project, similar to the Palmetto Literacy Project. And you know that the math standards will go into effect, or the updated math standards go into effect in fall 2025 as well. So those are the big things going on here. I know Jackie and Jess have reminded all of you that deadline in February for your fall student teachers. And I had a long conversation with a teacher candidate last week who has to go through some additional clearance steps here at the agency. Remember that deadline for us is 6 months out, so that any candidate who may have to go through an additional clearance process, that there's either they disclose something on the application or there's a finding on a background report that has to go through a clearance. That 6-month period gives them the time period to do that. So we're able to work with our certification review committee, and then in the rare instance that a candidate has to go to the board or a subcommittee of the board to get clearance, we've got time to do that before the beginning of the next semester. And this candidate was concerned that she was not going to be allowed to register for student teaching in the fall because she's got to go through some additional clearance steps. So again, I know you make decisions at your level about candidates moving forward, but just realize that our timeline here is so that we can get your candidates through that process. It is extremely rare that a candidate is denied clearance to begin student teaching. We have seen a couple of instances where the board has approved someone for student teaching who still may be going through some sort of adjudication process, and they'll allow them to student teach, but the requirement is after student teaching, they must complete an additional background check, clearance process, and disposition on whatever charge is out there. So again, if you've got questions, Jackie and Jessica can help. Becca Berg in our office can work with your candidates. We can't tell you what's on a report. We can't tell you we have a report, but your candidates can. So if you see that a candidate's status is under review, talk to that candidate, make sure that they have checked their portal account, because Becca will post correspondence for them about what the next steps are. So, and that's it. Other than I am available for any kind of questions or feedback. It's just nice to see your faces this morning. Stephanie, I see your hand raised.
Hey, so I missed the first minute or so of the meeting, so sorry if you happened to address this, but we were talking about a number of our students taking the praxis are in that provisional score range, and we're kind of starting to write up our process for how we, are still able to get them to graduate, but then obviously we can't sign the paperwork, for certification because they're in that provisional range.
Well, you actually can.
Yeah.
And that may be a decision at your institution. The way that verification form is phrased, there's a place on there for you to say that the candidate has finished everything in your program, but then there's a separate question about the exams.
Yeah.
So essentially that you're verifying they've completed everything in that program. There are a couple of institutions that successfully passing those exams is tied to successfully completing a program.
Mm-hmm.
For us, those are two separate things. We look for successful completion of your program, and then the exams are really for that certification piece. What I
So I
would
have-
say, go ahead.
Sorry, two questions related
Yeah.
to that. One, what I've generally been doing, because the information on that said that in order for them to receive that provisional certificate, they need a district to request. So I've been working with districts to get them to send that request, and once they send it, then I usually submit that paperwork kind of as a linked to that request. But knowing that we can send it beforehand and you just will keep it on their file, that's good.
Yeah.
Also, this was supposed to be sort of a 3-year pilot, right? So August 25 is when it's expiring. So I wanted to know like what the plan was to follow up.
So right now, our plan is to continue the first year availability next year. Unless I get guidance from senior staff that they don't want us to move forward. So the goal with that 3-year, and August gives us a chance to gather data from this current year, because we've got some folks that are in their 3rd year of provisional initial right now.
Okay, gotcha.
So we'll have data to take back to the state board, whether they want us to continue with the provisional initial option. There's something else kind of out and swirling around that I think may impact some of this as well. Praxis or ETS has started what is called Praxis Bridge, which is an option for states that adopt it. And right now it has gone through a pretty quick pilot in the fall and early winter with Kansas, West Virginia, and Connecticut. And now some additional states are signing or joining. But Praxis Bridge is designed for candidates who score within 1 standard error of measure below a cut score. And ETS will notify those candidates. Right now, it's only available for the elementary exam, the 5001 series. And they'll notify the candidate and give that candidate an opportunity to complete professional development modules related to that area of weakness. And then upon successfully completing those modules, getting an alternate passing marker, essentially.
I actually love that idea. That's a good
So, and this is really new. In fact, I was on a call with ETS yesterday. Their next, so they've done that for elementary. They are working now to expand it to, guess what? Praxis Core.
idea.
Now,
Yes,
here's what
oh
we
goodness.
have to do. All right. So here's what we have to do at our level. We would have to go to the board and get approval, because it's essentially an alternate passing score for these assessments. So I talked with our ETS rep, Jason Dietrich, to do a deep dive here with staff in the department. Because again, I'll have to get feedback from senior staff whether they want us to pursue this as an option. But I do see some other states moving in that direction. And ETS's intent is to add additional test titles to Praxis Bridge. So all that to say, going back to provisional initial, how Mary went through that kind of meandering. If Praxis Bridge is something that our board wants us to consider and wants us to adopt as an option, I think that impacts whether we continue with the provisional initial.
Makes sense.
Okay, so stay tuned.
Okay.
And
Do you think
and
we
again,
can? Sorry.
if you're interested in learning more about Praxis Bridge, I have a meeting with Jason this afternoon. We're certainly glad to ask ETS to do a session for y'all so that you can get a better sense of it. This has moved pretty quickly, I will say that. And our colleagues, I work with my counterpart in West Virginia a good bit, and so they've seen some positive signs there. they showed us numbers yesterday around Praxis Core. So they took the number of candidates who had taken core in the last 2 years and projected the number of candidates that would be eligible for Praxis Bridge on the assessment. So with math, it was about 4% of candidates that would be eligible for Bridge with this. With reading, it was 5%. With writing, it was 8%, which is kind of fascinating to me because I hear from you that writing is an increasing concern. We see it when we look at test results. And if you talk to high school teachers these days, they're going to tell you the same thing. And so if you're interested, we're glad to get a session available with ETS to learn more about Bridge. But again, it would have to be approved here at senior leadership and for us to go forward to the state board with that recommendation. But I do think if you're interested in it, we'll provide that session. And then your feedback is important to this whole process. So if you're interested, and I see it over in chat,
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah, I was going to say, it
So,
sounds like a
all
bunch
right.
of us are. So yeah.
So I'm glad to talk with Jason today and see if we can get a virtual session for y'all.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Sure. Thank you for the question. What else is out there? I know there's some other pieces of legislation that they're out and about that impact the work you do. I just shared the ones that are kind of most germane to the work that we do in the office. We also know there's a great deal of uncertainty at the federal level right now with the Department of Ed. What we've kind of been asked or tasked with here as staff in the department is to just be as supportive and reassuring as we can. If there are executive orders or decisions made that are going to impact our K-12 systems, the department will put out some guidance to our school districts, and we'll be glad to share that with y'all as well. But I think, I like, if you've read Dan Rather's book, he talks about, his kind of mantra is steady. And it's hard to be steady right now with all the uncertainty, but at least know that we are, we're with you, and we will do what we can to support you and understand the many challenges you face right now in these uncertain times. So, Jackie and Justin, we'll turn it back over to y'all.
Well, we thank you for being here, Mary, and for giving us all those updates. That is all that we have for today. So if y'all have any specific questions, feel free to, this is your last chance, feel free to get them out while we have Mary here with us. Otherwise, as always, Jessica and I will stay on in case you have any more specific questions that we can help y'all with. So thanks again for being here and happy Thursday.
Stay warm, everybody.
And I will go ahead and stop the